Leading up to the release of Moana in 2016, Moana was introduced with two sidekick or companion-type characters, Hei-Hei the chicken and Pua the pig. There was no doubt that Moana and Maui would dominate most of the film's runtime together, but most people likely assumed that Hei-Hei and Pua would heavily feature in the movie as well. All of the advertising, trailers, and merchandising prior to the movie suggested both Pua and Hei-Hei would play a key role in Moana's journey, but this was not to be the case. Hei-Hei and Pua are both shown wandering the island and accompanying Moana as she goes about her daily business at the start of the first Moana movie. But only one of these creatures actually goes with Moana on her great journey to restore the heart of Te Fiti. Unfortunately, it was not Pua. So why was Pua left behind? Why did Hei-Hei accompany Moana on her voyage instead? And why does Pua now go with Moana in Moana 2? In this video, I will answer these questions and more by providing both an in-universe and an out-of-universe explanation for Pua's notable absence. Moreover, I will analyze and explain the deeper meaning behind Pua's absence and note how it relates to Moana's entrance and participation in the hero's journey. When Moana first determines to restore the heart of Te Fiti, she readies an outrigger and after a musical number, immediately sets sail. The first few meters of travel seem smooth enough until a wave crashes over Moana's ship and forces Pua out. As Pua fights for his life nearby, a second larger wave crashes over Moana's outrigger and wrecks her ship. Moana manages to place Pua on a floating remnant from her outrigger until she is forced underwater and then has to fight for her life. Once Moana and Pua make it back to land, Pua exhibits signs of a trauma response towards sailing and its associated effects. Pua is clearly avoiding the water altogether, and he scrambles up the sand and away from the beach as soon as he lays eyes on a nearby oar. Pua is absent from the rest of the film due to this very response. Pua associates sailing with danger and fears for his safety. Moana sets sail for Te Fiti for a second time only a few hours after her first attempt with Pua. At this point, Pua is clearly still shaken by his first encounter with the sea and is not yet ready for another, so Moana leaves him behind and sets out on her own. Despite the comfort and friendship which Pua provides Moana, it would be far out of character for her to force her companion to join her after he almost drowned earlier that day. Moana chooses to respect and prioritize the safety of her companion over her own desire, even if minimal, for someone or something to join her at sea. Fortunately, time and greater exposure to water and sailing seem to remedy Pua's phobias, as he is shown accompanying Moana on her ship as she leads a fleet from Motunui into the ocean at the end of the first movie. Pua not only joins Moana on a large kamikau by the end of Moana, but he joins her for the entirety of her journey in Moana 2. And thank goodness for that. It is not just Pua who has grown though. Moana has developed as a character in her own right. In the first movie, Moana struggles at times to forge ahead in her voyage, even when it is only herself and Hei-Hei whom she needs to protect. Since Moana was not always capable of even looking after just herself, it makes sense that she was not yet ready to take on the responsibility of looking after one of her dearest companions in Pua as well. However, Moana is far more confident, competent, and capable in Moana 2. In the opening scene of the sequel, Moana is shown physically strapping a visibly larger Pua to her back and scaling a steep cliffside. This sequence represents a great increase in Moana's physical strength and stamina, but it also represents her greater sense of responsibility in a broader sense as well. Moana is now physically and personally empowered to look after others in a way she might not have been in the first movie. Moana could not have guaranteed Pua's safety in the first movie, but she is now confident enough to attempt a daring feat and remain assured that she can protect both herself and someone or something in the process. Moana's newfound sense of responsibility is further reflected in her decision to assemble a crew for her next expedition to Matawhatu. As a more self-assured and certain version of herself, Moana is now prepared to lead and safeguard 3 other people as well. In this way, Pua serves as a marker for Moana's growth into her role as a leader, seeing that she feels secure enough not only to bring her favorite animal companion, but actual humans on her subsequent journey. At the end of the day, I'm just glad that Moana has more company than Hei-Hei in Moana 2. Team Pua for the win. Moana is not a Disney princess. Moana reiterates this point throughout both the first and second movies. In Moana, she distinguishes herself as a rising chieftain rather than a princess.
Okay, first, I'm not a princess.
In Moana 2, she expands her titles to include both rising chieftain and Taufai or Wavefinder. Bottom line, Moana is not a princess. This difference in Moana's self-identity is crucial to understanding Pua's notable absence from the first Moana movie. It is impossible to appreciate the heroic depths of Moana's character and, by extension, Pua's absence, without first considering the arcs of those princesses who came before Moana. Researchers disagree on the most accurate way to categorize Disney princesses, but there is an overall consensus in academia that Disney princesses have grown in autonomy over time. For example, the original Disney princesses of Snow White, Cinderella, and Aurora are often regarded as damsels in distress who present and even glorify the notion of women as submissive to a male figure or authority. In fact, Snow White and Aurora are so passive in their character that they each fall into deep slumbers from which they are only awoken and saved by an unfamiliar male suitor. The next few generations of Disney princesses have done away with such pure passivity. Instead of awaiting their salvation from a chiefly unknown suitor, they take a more active role in finding, choosing, and courting their husbands-to-be. They also pursue more than just a husband, as they engage in individualized interests such as collecting, reading, entrepreneurship, or otherwise. Despite the greater variation among Disney princesses, most of them still, and especially the oldest ones, represent the transition from girlhood to womanhood as a primary theme. This theme typically manifests in the narrative arc of a Disney princess separating herself from the artifacts and manners of her youth and romantically connecting herself to a man of status, and often through marriage. The Disney princess has grown into womanhood by formally entering the stage of her life in which she might produce offspring. Unlike all these female leads before her, with the exception of Elsa, Moana does not even have a love interest, let alone one whom she might marry. Moana's lack of a potential love interest can be explained by the fact that Moana undergoes a heroic quest and does not follow a typical romance narrative. Moana as a movie is far less concerned with the transition from girlhood to womanhood through attachment to a man than through a quest for self-realization and actualization. The creators of Moana, and Moana herself, do not classify Moana as a Disney princess to reinforce this difference. If Moana is a princess, there is an implication within this very title that she will need to find a prince. When Moana is designated as a rising chieftain, more emphasis is placed on her status as a leader of men and women alike, rather than her need for a romantic partner. However, she does bear some similarities to the Disney princesses preceding her. Just as Jasmine has Raja, Ariel has Flounder, Mulan has Mushu, and many others, Moana has Hei-Hei and Pua. But whereas the animal companions of the former Disney princesses stay by their sides for most of their respective movies, Pua is notably absent from Moana save for the movie's beginning and ending. Pua's absence is, in fact, the direct result of Moana's divergence from the other Disney princesses. Again, Moana's arc is heroic rather than romantic, and in many respects, Moana can be thought not only to undergo some heroic quest, but to follow the archetypal hero's journey, as outlined by Joseph Campbell. In his book The Hero with a Thousand Faces, Campbell distills a complex list of 17 potential stages within the hero's journey into 3 overall movements: 1. Departure, 2. Initiation, and 3. The return. Campbell's succinct overview of the entire hero's journey is as follows, quote, "A hero ventures forth from the world of common day into a region of supernatural wonder. Fabulous forces are there encountered and a decisive victory is won. The hero comes back from this mysterious adventure with the power to bestow boons on his fellow man." Campbell's summary of the hero's journey aligns with Moana's character arc far more closely than one about the apparent transition between girlhood and womanhood. Moana leaves safety and security on Motunui for the magical waters of the sea, as well as the various islands which populate it. She encounters a demigod and other sources of supernatural power, triumphs by restoring the heart of Te Fiti, and returns to welcome the return of life to Motunui. So, you might be wondering, what does all of this have to do with Pua? Within the hero's departure before their grand journey, the hero must leave their ordinary world of comfort behind and cross the limits of their known world into the unknown. Moana completes this part of her overall arc when she sets sail for the second time and successfully clears the reef she had been unable to during her first attempt. In this moment, Moana has left the spatial familiarity of Motunui and its nearby waters, and she has now symbolically embraced, quote, "passage beyond the veil of the known into the unknown." In any typical hero's journey, such a passage requires that the hero indeed leave behind all attachments to the known world. In order for the hero to fully encounter the unknown world, they must avoid an over-reliance upon connections to their former life or self. Moana has an obvious affection for Pua, which she does not for Hei-Hei. Pua might even be considered Moana's best friend and a symbol for the known world of Motunui. If Moana were any other Disney princess, Pua would likely have remained her companion for the majority of the movie. However, Moana is not like other Disney princesses. In order for Moana to fully accept her call into the unknown, she needs to leave Pua behind, since he would serve as a constant reminder of her former attachments and self. Pua would also provide Moana a sense of comfort and security, which might prevent her from challenging and pushing herself to the fullest, as she might over-rely on Pua for assurance in moments of despair or hardship rather than overcoming them in her own heroic way. Moana producer Shurer confirms to Entertainment Weekly that Pua was initially going to accompany Moana, but the issue was that in a quote, classic hero's journey, the hero leaves all comforts behind. And so the creators of Moana made the difficult decision to leave poor Pua at home so that all things of Moana's family are left behind. This push for self-reliance is further emphasized in the fact that Moana's power ballads are often sung to herself and without a clear audience. Many Disney princesses allow their animal companions to act as confidants and bear witness to their unseen or unheard desires, which they refuse to share elsewhere. Moana does not engage in such moments with Pua. Moana interacts less directly and personally with Pua, both because her arc is one of far greater independence than many of the older Disney princesses, and because he is not physically present. With Pua by her side, it is possible that Moana would not have returned from her voyage with so much growth in her senses of respect, responsibility, and courage had she been able to gaze into Pua's familiar expression as opposed to facing her losses head-on. As consistent with the hero's journey, Moana is permitted to bring Hei-Hei along her journey because he is far from a known comfort to Moana. As Moana walks about Motunui prior to her departure, Hei-Hei is shown to be an amusement at best and an annoyance at worst for Moana. She bears no attachment to Hei-Hei, and it would be an exaggeration to claim that she was pleased to find his company after he stowed away on her outrigger. In the context of the hero's journey, Hei-Hei was the much better choice for Moana and her character growth, since he acts as a functional companion rather than a personal one. Hei-Hei merely serves to take up space and ensure Moana is not in utter isolation. Moana is bound to Hei-Hei out of her sense of duty in general, rather than an emotional connection. So Hei-Hei is a good companion to test and then stretch Moana's sense of responsibility. That being said, it would be disingenuous for me to claim that Hei-Hei's serviceable presence was more endearing than what we could have gotten if Pua had gone on the journey instead. It would be even more insincere for me to claim that Hei-Hei is better than Pua. He is not. Thanks for watching. Are you Team Hei-Hei or Team Pua? Let me know in the comments down below. And lastly, like and subscribe for more videos, and I will catch you in the next one.